Hey guys, how you doing? So today I was thinking we could talk a little bit about missile avoidance. I'm just going to share and go over some stuff that I found that works for me. I'm sure there are other ways to do this, but today I'm just going to review the stuff that I know that I've discovered in my time in DCS. And we'll start off by talking about IR homing missiles, and then we can move on to radar guidance. Okay. And I'm going to show you the in-game scenario, and then after the in-game scenario we're going to go and have a look at the TAC view and see what we can discover in the TAC view and talk a little bit about it in there. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so IR homing, this is the first missile launch right here. That's a heat seeker, so there it is, first missile. You can see that cluster of flares, and it makes the missile go for the flares here. This is the same view from the aircraft. Watch that missile, goes for the flares. Right, notice how I'm dropping the flares in clusters. Right, here it is, second missile launch, another cluster of flares. You can see the missile goes for that. Now we'll get the aircraft view. This is the exact same launch from the aircraft. I'm going to show you a couple more launches here just to show that it consistently works. This is the third missile launch. Once again, a cluster of missiles, and that IR homing missile goes for the flares again. And this is the same thing from the aircraft perspective. Right, you can see that missile goes for the flares. And the fourth missile here, once again, tracks for the flares. Alright, so that's IR homing for you, and we'll talk about why that's important, the flare usage and how to use them in the TAC view coming right up. Alright. Okay, so here is the TAC view for what we just watched there. You'll see that's the SA9 system. That's obviously us, or me I guess, and you can see, let's watch for that first missile launch. You can see that first of all, the IR homing missile, it's obviously got me, it's tracking me from here. Like, it's not stupid, it knows I'm here, but it waits until right here where it knows that if it fires the missile here, by the time it gets up here, it's going to have a nice view of my afterburners, right? So that's why it launches the missile. It waits for that exact moment and then it drops or fires the missile there. So let's talk about these flares. The reason that I say it's important to drop them in clusters like this is because you want to create a large heat signature away from yourself, right? If you drop the flares 1, 2, 3, 4, you're getting 4 different heat signatures, but they're not very strong. So I find that the probability of the missile going for the flares is much less than if you drop a cluster together like this, right? So that's why I cluster them up. You can see that missile goes for the flares there. Just going to fast forward to the next launch. And once again, we get that second missile launch. Once again, the cluster of flares, you can see that missile just immediately self-detonates. The third missile launch right here, the cluster of flares. So you can see it's consistently working. It's consistently going for those flares when they're dropped in clusters like this. After this, I'm going to show you what happens if you don't fire them in clusters. There's that fourth missile launch. You can see immediately, as soon as, and I'm dropping the flares in pairs, right? 2, 4, 6, 8. So I'm actually dropping a pretty decent chunk of flares here. You can see the second that the missile starts to track for the flares seems to be once the second pair comes out. Now this is not, it's not like if you drop 4 flares automatically the missile will go for the flares. This is all probability, right? You're just trying to stack the deck against the missile and increase your probability. So the more flares you drop, the better, but within reason, because you don't want to run out of flares, right? So just conservatively drop them. You want to have eye contact on this missile. The one thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that you don't actually get a radar warning in the plane. I think except the A-10C, I think it has some sort of system that it gives you a little beep if there's an IR homing missile coming at you, but generally most planes don't have that. So you have to visually make contact with this missile to know when it's been launched. And if you can visually see it, you can watch it, and you drop the flares, you can see when it starts to track off of you and go for the flares. That's when you know that you're good. You can stop dropping flares, right? You don't want to waste any more. But yeah, it's important to have that visual contact on an IR homing missile because you won't get that notification. Alright, so that's that. Let's go have a look at what happens if you don't use the flares and clusters and you use them conservatively. Alright, exact same scenario except conservative flares here, not in clusters. You can see one flare, two flare. That missile goes for the first flare. We get lucky on the first one. Watch for the second missile here. And again, I'm being conservative with those flares, no clusters. Alright, there it goes. First flare, second flare, and I'm hit. With a third flare still coming up, but I still died. Okay, I think you guys got the point on that one, but let's just do this quickly just for anyone who actually didn't get it. So there's that first missile launch, and flare 1, flare 2, right? And you can see I'm not creating that big heat signature here. I was able to easily dodge 4 missiles before, but you can see in this scenario the second missile gets me. Actually, the first one should have got me. And you can see I'm not creating big enough heat signatures, and the missile is smarter than that, and it kills me. Alright, so I think you guys get that point. We can move on to radar guidance at this point. Alright, so here we go, radar guidance. Missiles are way off in the distance there because they have more range. Here, this is the S300 site. You have the first missile fire, and there's the second missile. And I am going to immediately start dumping chaff, and I'm going to invert and aggressively go for the ground. Alright, here come the missiles, and you can see they're kind of nosing down a little bit. They're trying to lead me as I go into the ground. A lot of missiles would hit the ground at this point, but these missiles are smarter. They're not just going to crash themselves into the ground. They're just going to fly level to the ground. Here I go. I'm just continuing my dive to the ground, full afterburner. Still dumping chaff. I dump some more chaff as I get close to the ground, just to see if I can confuse the missiles anymore. I'm still too high here. And here we are. I'm treetop level at this point. Full afterburner. You don't have to have afterburner. I just have it just to make this go by quicker. Just to get to the point, right? So I'm just flying level to the ground, going through trees, cities, towns, whatever I can, as low as I can at the ground. You can see that hill off in the distance there. I'm using that to mask myself. See that missile explode in the sky there? We'll talk about that in the TAC view. And I'm just staying as low as I can here without hitting anything. And what I'm doing is making it hard for the radar to pick me up, right? If it can't pick me up, if it can't lock me up, it can't shoot me. Now, once I move out of the kill envelope of the missile, the beeping stops on my plane, I can go vertical. And theoretically, I should be safe. If he fires on me again, I would just repeat the same thing. Okay, so let's have a look at that in the TAC view, see what happened fully. Alright, so here we are. F-18, there's the SA-10 site way off in the distance there. Let me just pick it up here. It's about 66.1 kilometers out. You can see I'm not within the kill envelope yet, but it's going to fire while I'm still outside of it. It's making the assumption that I'm going to fly into the envelope. So it's picking up a fire solution. And it's going to fire the missiles right around here at about 57, 56 kilometers. There's that missile launch. Alright, here come the two. Now, let's look at me. As soon as I got the indicator, I inverted the plane and I started to dip for the ground, and I dumped the chaff. Anytime you change direction, if you're braking right, you're braking left, you're braking up, down, you want to dump chaff as you do that, because you're going to create a cloud of radar beams. The radar is going to hit these chaff particles, and then you want to dump them in clusters, just like the flares, right? If you drop 1 and then 2 here, you're not going to create a very big cloud of like aluminum. It's basically like aluminum foil, and it reflects the radar beam back. If you don't drop too many, you're not going to reflect a lot back. It's going to decrease your probability of confusing the missile. So you want to drop quite a few of them so you can create a nice big cloud of essentially tinfoil in the sky that'll reflect back to the radar and or confuse it. So anytime you change direction, dump a bunch of flare, okay, or sorry, chaff. So like I said, we're going to start diving for the ground aggressively. I'm not going to dilly-dally, right? I'm like, look at this, nose down, straight all the way down, right? I'm trying to get down there as fast as I can as these missiles come in. These missiles are intelligent. These are the S300s. They're not just going to ram themselves into the ground like I showed you there. Some less intelligent missiles, as you lead them down, they'll actually try to intercept you lower down, and they'll end up hitting the ground. Okay, so here we go once again. You can see that I've changed directions. As I came down, I'm kind of braking to the right slightly, and I've dumped more chaff. And also the other reason I did it was because I was basically near the ground. So it's another way to try to confuse the missiles, because at this point they're trying to pick me out of the terrain, right? So there's a higher probability that the chaff could confuse them. Once again, it's dropped in clusters. Okay, it's not just 1, 2, 3 chaff. It's a whole bunch of it over here. Now watch these missiles. Mach 1, and I'm going up pretty fast here. You can see they still have their intercept route. Very intelligent missiles. But I'm all the way in the ground now. They're having to dodge through trees and buildings, and they end up hitting something. Okay, so they're gone. I'm going to stay down here. Okay, just because those missiles are dead and my plane stopped beeping doesn't mean I'm going to come up. I'm way too close to this guy. And the other thing just to talk about here is this is the situation. This is what you would be doing if for whatever reason you had to push out of this. You had to push through the envelope of the missile. Let's say your target was over here somewhere and you had to get through it. Realistically, when the missile fired at you here, you should have done a 180 and just got the hell out, right? If you accidentally came into the envelope. But if for whatever reason you absolutely have to get through this SAM site, this is the way to do it. Stay close to the ground and just push your way through. And I also use this area because it's relatively flat terrain, right? If it was in the mountains, you should be in the valleys, using the mountains and terrain for masking. Okay, so let's see, here we go. We got another missile launch here, and I'm still hauling ass. Just gonna fast forward a little bit. This is that missile that exploded in the sky behind us, and we're going through the ground again here. Okay, so what happened here was I tried to put the plane. I knew where this was because it was showing it to me on my RWR screen, so I knew where the SAM site was, and I knew where the hill was. So what I did was try to put the hill between me and the SAM's radar. Okay, so what happened there was as soon as I did that, this missile loses track. It went stupid and it self-detonated. Okay, so even these small little hills can save your life. Alright, that missile had more than enough energy to come and get me. Okay, that was on a perfect intercept course over here somewhere. But because of that hill, I managed to save myself. So if you see hills and buildings and stuff like that, get behind them. Put them between you and the SAM site. It'll save your life. And then, yeah, I just climb, and that's it. Alright, once I'm out of the envelope. Okay, so let's go talk about one more technique. Okay, so this last scenario is going to be not coming down to the ground and staying in the sky. Let's see how that plays out. I'm going to do it with high-speed turns to the left, to the right. There's that S300 missile launch. And you can see this time they're climbing for the sky. They're not leading to the ground. And here I am. I'm going to brake to the right. I'm not going for the ground this time. Braking right, and then back to the left. And I'm full afterburner. I'm going as fast as I can here. And then I'm going to turn back to the right. And I'm just going to maintain that high speed as I do these turns, left, right, left, right. There's that missile again, and it's trying to track me. There it goes. And that contrail, that was me, so you can see it's trying to follow my lead here, but I have way too much energy for it. You can see the second missile there as well. Those two little dots that are following me, they're not going to be able to catch me though. So I scrapped the first two missiles, I outran them, outmaneuvered them, and that was because of the distance. Okay, now watch what happens, because now I've gotten a lot closer to the site. Okay, and there's that second launch. It's going to give me two more missiles. Remember, my distance is much closer here. I'm still going to continue the same maneuvers, but unfortunately I'm going to die. Okay, so let's go talk about how to use this maneuver, when to use it in the TAC view. Alright, here we go. Here's that TAC view for that one. We're going to stay horizontal. There's that missile launch at around 58 kilometers. Alright, you can see I went right, I go left. Those missiles are still coming in. I'm just constantly doing turns to the left, to the right. These missiles have much more energy than air-to-air missiles fired from other planes. So you're going to have to do a lot more maneuvers to lose these things. Okay, look at these, are still Mach 1.6. And look at these big turns that they've already done. So just because you did a couple turns doesn't mean you're safe. Okay, and remember the directional change chaff usage, right? To try to confuse them. This again is not guaranteed, it's just increasing your probability. As you can see, these missiles have not gone for it. And these are also S300, so they're relatively smart missiles. And you can see I'm just doing my turns. There's always luck involved. I didn't know how lucky I got until I watched the TAC view here. And they're right on my 6 here, but they just don't have the energy to get me. Alright, so I'm safe from these two. Now, when I would recommend using this, personally, I would always hit the deck. I find that to be the safest way to avoid SAMs, but I would use this if I accidentally entered the envelope of this missile, and unlike the last scenario, I didn't have to go over here to get a target. I just accidentally entered the kill envelope of the missile, and I want to get out. Okay, so realistically, I would have done this turn, and I would have exited right here. Right, I would have just kept going. So, or I would have come here, done the turn like this, and then exited through here. Okay, and theoretically, I would have got out of the envelope, and I would have survived, and I would have called everyone and been like, "Hey guys, there's an S300 over here, so be careful." Right. However, for the purposes of the demonstration, I'm going to continue coming closer and closer. and then there's that next missile launch. Now I'm relatively close at this point, about 24.5 kilometers out. Okay, so there's that missile launch, but you can see I'm way too close to be pulling these maneuvers. I can do as many turns as I want. This missile is coming in at Mach 3.8. Okay, I'm not going to be able to dodge this thing. This is not a maneuver to use if you're going to be getting close to the SAM site. That's how you end up getting killed. Alright, so it only works at distance if you're going to do horizontal, high-speed turns. I don't recommend decreasing your speed for this scenario here. It just doesn't seem to work. Decreasing speed, the missiles are way too fast. They just kill you. So that's going to be the video for today. I don't want to make it too long. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.